Hello, YouTube. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me today for, I believe, my third live chat. Happy Memorial Day weekend to everyone. Hope everyone's having a great weekend. We already have some great questions lined up. Thanks for that, guys. Sammy, we'll start with you. Hello, Brendan. How did you develop a love of the voice and end up at NYSC? Great question, and I love talking about this. The journey to becoming a speech coach, speech pathologist, and singing teacher was a really fun one for me. Going way back when I was very little, always loved singing, always loved talking, had a reputation for never shutting up. And I used to love to just do voices and impersonations all growing up. As I got older, I went to college. I was majoring in philosophy and religious studies. But as anybody knows about those subjects, there's not too many jobs out there for philosophy and religious studies, but I still majored in that. And then at the same time, I found this career known as speech pathology. For those of you who don't know, speech pathology deals with speech and language disorders. Lots of stuff can go wrong in here, and speech pathologists are trained to fix that. And I felt that I could use my love of the singing voice and the speaking voice and help people at the same time. It seemed like a perfect fit for me. And then when I went to my master's degree for speech pathology, one of the disciplines within speech pathology is voice disorders, things that go wrong specifically with the vocal cords. And I found that I was just passionate about this, loved the vocal anatomy, I was just obsessed with it. And then I learned, though, that there weren't too many speech pathologists who specialized in the singing voice. There are many speech pathologists who specialize in the speaking voice, but then when it comes time to work with singers, the know-how isn't there. So even though I had great mentors in the speech pathology world, I needed somebody in the singing world. And that's how I found Justin Stoney of New York Vocal Coaching. And I trained with him through the teacher training program. And then it was a really interesting just fate type of thing. While I was training with him, New York Speech Coaching was looking for some speech coaches. The difference between speech coaching and speech pathology being that speech pathology deals with disorders and speech coaching deals with improving your speech concerns without a disorder. And they were looking for some speech coaches, and I had some experience with that. Ended up working for both companies and starting up our third division, New York Speech Pathology. So it really was the perfect fit for me. It was the company that could blend my love of speech pathology, speech coaching, vocal coaching, and of course, my degree in philosophy always serves me well as well. So that's how I am where I am now. I've been here for quite some time now. So always love talking about it, though. It's always great to look back and see how you got to be where you are now. And then, of course, looking forward to the future. Thank you, Sammy. Vincent, the Prince. Hello, Brendan. Why is it that when I want to talk with a heightened soft palate, my voice wants to get louder? How can I avoid this? By the way, good morning, evening, and afternoon to Leon. I didn't mean to ignore you. There just wasn't a question there. And Amelie. All right, Vincent. All of us have vocal habits that we've formed, right? We all go throughout life, and there are certain things that happen naturally in voices, but there's other things that we just, for one reason or another, form a certain habit. Why do you specifically get a little bit louder when you raise that soft palate? There could be a whole host of reasons. It largely comes down to just a habit you formed. You might be thinking that with that larger mouth shape that there's an intuitive sense of I need to push more air through there. But regardless of how you develop that habit, the question is, as you said, how can you avoid this? For me, I've always found that one of the best things to do with singing or talking is either find exercises that lend themselves to the vocal coordinations you're trying to do, or to learn the extremes of vocal production. What do I mean? That second idea, learning the extremes of vocal production, that's going to be the most helpful for you. If you can learn the directions that you're traveling, you can learn how to adjust. What do I mean? With directions you're traveling, let's talk about pitch. You can go high, you can go low. right? With volume, you can go loud, you can go quiet. With larynx height, you can go high, you can go low. With soft palate height, you can go high, you can go low. Basically, most of our vocal components work in opposites, right? There's one direction or the other direction. I'm simplifying this, of course, but most of these components have directions. So for you, you're saying that when you raise the palate, that your volume gets louder, right? So what you need to learn to do is with that soft palate, how to mess with that volume and go in the opposite directions. So I would say, try to see if while you're doing that raised palate, can we do some crescendos and decrescendo exercises. On one note, have that raised palate, oh, and see if you can crescendo. Oh, and see if you can decrescendo. And as you start to learn those extremes, those different directions you can travel, you're going to get way better awareness of just how loud you are. Of course, sometimes if two aspects of our voice, such as volume and palate, if they're tied together, it might be the case that as you start to decrescendo or get quieter, that palate lowers, since that seems to be your habit. So what you'll need to do is think opposite. If, when you get quiet, the palate drops back down, you need to think simultaneously about lowering that volume, but then even raising your palate. Thinking about that opposite direction will actually keep it probably right about balanced. It's an interesting thing for all vocal technique. If you can't keep something stable and it's going in one direction or the other, imagine the opposite direction. If my larynx keeps going up and I want it to stay steady, don't just think steady, think down. If I'm going flat and I want to keep the same note, don't just think steady, think sharp, right? So these opposite directions, I think, will really be helpful for you, Vincent. Do those crescendos and decrescendos with the raised palate, and if the palate drops on you, try to raise it while you're lowering the volume. Hopefully that's helpful. All right. Here's my first question today. Is nasal resonance basically the same as closing your nose off from the inside? This is a very good thought, but it's actually the opposite. Okay? Let's talk about what nasal resonance is. Now, nasal resonance gets a bad reputation a lot, and unjustifiably so. It is a great thing, nasal resonance. People confuse it with this term nasality. We'll talk about that later. What nasal resonance means is that you're allowing those vibrations to vibrate in your nasal cavity, right? Nasal resonance means that you're resonating in the nose. So we don't want to close off access to the nose because then no sound would resonate in there. We actually want to open access to the nose and allow those vibrations to occur. So the first part of this answer is we want that to be open, allowing sound to go into the nose. Right? Now, how do we do that? You have a body part known as the soft palate. Vincent and I were just talking about that. And that soft palate can raise or it can lower. At the same time, the back of the tongue can also raise or lower. The soft palate and the back of the tongue, they operate in contrary motion to each other. That means that when the soft palate raises, the back of the tongue lowers. They go away from each other. Or when the soft palate lowers, the back of the tongue raises to touch it. So, when you raise the soft palate and lower the tongue, it forms a little blockade up here. So air can't go into my nose, it has to come out my mouth. But if I lower the palate and raise the back of the tongue, now I formed a wall here, and it has to go into my nose. I'll let you guys see inside the mouth here. And when I show you inside the mouth, when I do all mouth sounds, all oral resonance, you're going to see a really high palate. Ready? See how high up that is? Do a little light for you. Now, if I do it through the nose, Do you see how the palate dropped and the back of the tongue raised up to touch it? That's how you change nasal resonance versus oral resonance. So a lowered palate will allow air to go into the nose, and a raised palate will block it from going into the nose. And we want some of that nasal resonance. We want to find a balance. Obviously, 100% of it would be too much. That's 100% nasal resonance, but no nasal resonance, hi, how are you, is also something we're not looking for. We want a nice balance. Hi, how are you? Having that nice buzz and ring of the nasal resonance, but also the fullness of the oral resonance at the same time. Hopefully that's helpful. All right. Oh, though, I mentioned this nasality piece. I should talk about that. When people say you have a nasal voice, they're talking about this sort of sound. Hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? But that's not caused primarily by that nasal resonance. You can prove it because if you hold your nose while doing that, you shouldn't be able to make that sound. Hi, how are you? Hi, hi. It should change or the air should close off. The air should close off, but it doesn't, which proves that it's not all going through the nose. What it is actually something known as twang, or a narrowing of a body part known as the aryepiglottic sphincter. Long story short, inside the larynx, there are these folds, and when they narrow, that's how we get that sound. So it's unfortunate that people call it nasality because it has nothing to do with the nose. So nasal resonance, good. Nasality, that you might not want depending on the voice you're trying to do. I'm glad that's helpful. I see you say super great answer there. Sally, after an hour and a half of choir practice and despite ensuring I do belly breathing, I inevitably end the evening with a speaking voice that sounds like the beginnings of laryngitis. What am I doing wrong? I'm glad. All right, what am I doing wrong? Breathing is very important, 100%. And it's great to hear that you're doing that belly breathing, that diaphragmatic breathing. Really good stuff. Keep that up. Don't stop doing that. That being said, there's a little bit of a myth in singing world that everything is about breathing. And it's not. Breathing's important. That belly breath is good. Don't stop doing that. But there are so many other components to your voice. It's not just the breath. What are some other components that might be causing you problems? One might be neck musculature. I want you to practice singing in front of a mirror for a little bit, see a reflection, or do a video, whatever's best, and notice if there tends to be a lot of extrinsic, meaning outside muscle tension. Are you getting a lot of this going on? Right? That's one thing to look for. That might be happening regardless of whether or not the breath is correct. You get a great breath, but all that extrinsic muscle tension. Another thing that might be going on, the larynx itself might be really raising up. You guys can see my Adam's apple right here. It can lower or it can raise. You might be raising it a lot while you're singing, and that's also going to cause some tension. This beginning of laryngitis can be caused not just by breath being insufficient, but by that tension formed by either the extrinsic muscle tension or the raised larynx. If you think about it, if you're clenching and raising all of that and then pounding tons of air through there, that's not going to be a good situation for the voice. It's going to be very tight and having these really hard collision forces of the cords going back and forth with the air going through there. So make sure that even though the breath is great, maybe that it's just not set up well with that extrinsic tension or the raised larynx. Another thought, maybe you're using too much air. I do a lot of vocal rehabilitation work, a lot of singers that have had injuries, or of course speakers who have had injuries or other voice disorders. And a lot of times there's just too much air. A lot of singers especially think the answer is always more air. This is a good tip for everyone. Check your air. You might be surprised that you're pushing too much. Is there that one note that always gets a little distorted for you that you don't want to? That one note that always gets squeezed? Try scaling back 10%. You might actually be giving too much. Other factors. Just stress level in general can be causing some of that tension. Sometimes just the mindset we put ourselves in is going to cause some of that strain. After an hour and a half, you're going to be shot. Another thing, it just might be an endurance thing where maybe you're not ready for an hour and a half of choir practice. I don't know how long you've been doing it for. You might have been doing it for years, but if not, that's something that you want to make sure you have a nice practice regimen, right? Are you only singing during that choir practice every week? Or do we have a nice, consistent regimen throughout the week? There's a whole host of things it could be, but that's where I would start. Check your tension, raised larynx, extrinsic muscular tension, the amount of air you're putting through there, general just tension, general stress, and also the endurance factor. All right, hopefully that's helpful, Sally. Anita, for a naturally high larynx, what can be done to sing comfortably in chest voice for long without sounding raspy? When you say a naturally high larynx, are you saying you want to have a high larynx, or you typically just have the high larynx? Is that what you're saying? You typically have a high larynx, and when you're singing in chest voice for too long, you get a little bit raspy? Is that what we're saying, Anita? While you're responding to that, I'll just say the answers are going to be pretty similar to what I said for Sally. You have a high larynx. That's your natural default. I would say two things about that. One, everything I just said to Sally is going to apply to you. Check all of those components, extrinsic tension, the amount of airflow, the stress level, all of that. But you're saying, well, I have that high larynx though, so now what do I do? A few things. One, we don't need to think that having a high larynx is just the way we are. Like I have blue eyes, I can't change that. That's just how I am. That's not the case with larynx position. So first I would say we should start doing some laryngeal exercises, some laryngeal depression exercises, some laryngeal elevation exercises, moving the larynx, right, getting all that to go on and seeing if we can drop that larynx just a little bit. Not so much that it's changing your sound completely, but just enough so that you can free it up. But that being said, I would say if you do want to keep the high larynx, because there's nothing wrong with the high larynx if you're doing it on purpose, right? If you're doing it on purpose, that's great, but you might need to use a little less airflow if you're going to be doing it for a long time. We might need to be not doing it for as long of a time, right? But I would say that in general, see if you can control the larynx. If the larynx is raising naturally, that's probably more so the case that it's just a bad habit. And it's raising out of tension, that's the only way I can get these notes out, and that's not how we want to get notes out. So, as counterintuitive as this sounds, learn how to lower the larynx so that you can then raise your larynx with ease, right? You might think, but I want to keep it high. Why would I want to learn how to lower it? But opposites help us so much. If we learn how to lower the larynx, then when we raise it, it's not going to be raised because we have to. It's going to be raised because we want to. And that's really the essence of good technique. Yeah, great question. Actually, let me answer. Vincent, I'm going to come back to yours, okay? I'm going to go to this question here just because it's still in the same topic of larynx, but I will get back to you. How can you know whether you have a natural low or high larynx? Yeah, this is just a matter of habit, right? Where does that larynx sit? You can look at it and look at it at rest without trying to do anything. Then when you sing, does it go, do, re, mi, fa, so, right? Does it raise back up, or does it drop, or does it stay even? Now you might not be able to see your larynx. I happen to have this gigantic one, so it's pretty easy to see, but you can feel it. So if you place your hand lightly on your throat and swallow, you'll feel that larynx jump up. And if you yawn, you'll feel it lower. Okay, so even if you can't see it, you can feel it. And then just see what happens when you start talking or start singing. See if it jumps up or drops down. And again, I do want to just be careful with that term natural, just because natural, you're right, it is your natural larynx, but natural is just a result of whatever your habits have been, right? There's a lot of things we do that might come naturally, but aren't the best thing for us. It's natural that I slouch a little bit, but that's not necessarily something I want to keep doing, right? I want to learn how to have better posture. So that being said, high larynx is not bad if you're doing it on purpose. Vincent, back to you. Is practicing singing while sitting less good in any way? I might have a slightly controversial opinion on this, so be sure to listen to others on this. A lot of people say you have to stand while singing. It's the only way to do it. You have to stand while singing. I think you should learn how to stand while singing, but I am of the opinion that you should learn how to sing in all of the environments or situation that you're going to need to perform in. One of the instruments I play is the drums, and a lot of times I do backup vocals while I'm drumming. It's important for me to learn how to sing while sitting. It's very important for me. If I only practice singing while standing, I'm not going to have the same understanding of my voice while playing the drums. In fact, I better practice singing while playing the drums, right? I need to know how to coordinate those vocal skills with that particular posture that I'm in. If you're a singer who also dances, if it's musical theater, or you act while you're singing, you need to learn how to move while singing, sometimes bending in weird positions. So yeah, singing is going to give us this great posture. Standing, rather, is going to give us this great posture, but we need to learn how to do that in a variety of situations. So I would not say that sitting is less good. If you only could choose one, stand. But I think it's important to learn sitting as well. Okay? Again, if you only had one choice, if you said there's only one type of singing I can do, I would choose standing. But I don't think there's only one situation you can do. I think you have some choices. Does that make sense? Guys, these are great questions today. Great questions today. This might be my favorite chat yet. I'm really liking this. We brought out the good questions for Memorial Day weekend. You're very welcome, Vincent. I'm curious to hear from all of you. Are you all singers? Are you speakers, voice impressionists? What are some of the things that you guys do? I want to hear what you're working on, get to know your interests. So let me know a little bit. While you're doing that, I'll tell you a little bit about my artistic endeavors. For me, as you all know, I'm obviously a singer, but I also run our Voice Impressions YouTube show, Voice Breakdown, where we teach how to do character voices. I also play a whole bunch of instruments, so do piano, bass, guitar, drums, mandolin, ukulele, lots of different things. And I believe it or not, my formal training was on the tuba. So that's my main instrument. So these are my musical interests. I want to know a little bit about yours. Is everybody here a singer? Okay, just beginning. That's great. Being a beginner singer is really quite the journey. You start to learn all the amazing things that this larynx can do, that these vocal cords can do. I was just talking to some friends earlier this morning, and they asked me, they said, do you really believe that anybody can learn to sing? And The truth is yes. The truth is yeah. And I was telling them how I've had some singers that when they began, they were beginners, right? The skill wasn't quite there. And the world thinks that you either have it or you don't. But I was trying to tell them how these singers that in the beginning who really were just learning how to do it for the first time, now they're great. And I don't just mean they're okay. They're great. They've really grown a lot. So really enjoy this beginning time, Anita, because you're going to learn so many things. And I would keep doing what you're doing, talk to vocal coaches, watch videos, get with a good voice teacher in your area so you can really do things right from the beginning. Yeah. Sally, you sing in 2 church choirs. That's great. That's really, really great. 2 church choirs. For me, most of my musical endeavors are at my church. Just came back from today. It was bass, keys, and singing today, all at the same time. Let's see. Music theater performer. Used to be focused on theater, but now you're developing as a singer. Classical music at school wasn't really my thing, but now I've discovered jazz and soul, and you love it. I love that. I love that you've been trying to do a variety of different things and really finding where you feel like you fit in most. That's great. So you still do music theater performance, and you're just now trying to develop singing a little bit, and jazz and soul are the focus. That's great. Again, I'm not making this up. I also was talking to friends about jazz today. And jazz is just, it's really a genre all on its own. It really is just an incredible, incredible genre, especially for singing. You're going to be doing some real cool stuff with that. So keep up the good work there. And Sally, you're singing alto and trying to understand harmony. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. Harmony. How to learn harmonies. One of the things about harmonies is that you kind of always need someone else, right? But you also can sing along with recordings. You can record yourself and try to do harmonies with yourself. One of the things that helped me a lot with harmonies was understanding a little bit of music theory, okay? I'm not saying you need to be a master of music theory, but if you understand the way that chords are structured, that's a great way to get started. Take some simple pop songs, some simple rock songs, and whatever the note is that they're singing, imagine building a chord around it. So if it's ah, imagine ah, ah, and you'll be singing a 5th harmony, or the third harmony, or 5th. So imagining the chords was always very helpful for me. Imagining the scales, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, always helped me in the very beginning. Over time, you get a little more natural with that. But that's something that really, really helped me in the beginning there. Is there any place that you post your music or music performances? Great question, Vincent. Most of my music these days I'm keeping to myself. I like to be less on the stage, less in the public eye, and more so helping people like yourself learn how to do it. I've fallen in love with teaching. Most of my performance these days are just at local churches. That's where I tend to spend most of my Sundays, except for the middle of Sunday today where I'm joining all of you. So most of it is in that context. Yeah. Maybe one day I'll start performing again, but for today, I like to teach more than perform. You're in a lounge band and you're forming a choir. Wow. So let's see, we got a lot of choir stuff going on today. Sally's in 2 choirs, Lean's forming a choir. Wow. Now, choir singing, guys, that's an interesting topic as well, because there's going to be a lot of other added challenges, or at least distinctions, when you're singing with a group versus when you're singing with yourself, right? A lot less reliance on the microphone. Usually the choirs are group mic'd as opposed to individually mic'd. You have to learn how to, yeah, they're really interesting. You have to learn how to navigate the different voice types, have to learn how to both lock in or sometimes ignore some other singers. It's really quite the challenge. So we said, let's see, we were talking about voice types before. Who said? Sally, you said you're singing alto. Lean, or Lien, I'm sorry for the pronunciation there. What are you singing in the choir? Are you singing a particular part? Choreography as well. That's challenging. That's definitely challenging. Significant choreography or just a little swaying and moving? There always should be a little bit of that choreography. A little swaying and moving is always helpful. Lightens things up a little bit. This is great, guys. And are we all taking voice lessons as well? Or is it mainly New York Vocal Coaching's YouTube channel? Which really, let's give it up for Justin Stoney and the New York Vocal Coaching videos. They're just incredible. They're incredible. Amelia singing for 4 years, and you became really interested in vocal technique. You had some bad breathing problem, and it handicapped you for singing. Oh, wow. Well, first off, I'm sorry to hear that. I know that injuries that keep you away from doing what you love are not fun, but we wish you the absolute best of luck. You're in our thoughts and prayers there. If I can give you a little bit of encouragement with some vocal injuries, I'm going to let all of you in on a little secret here. This is something that only your group chat is going to get to know. Brendan, me, had some vocal injuries back in the day. Earlier, I believe it was Sammy who asked about how I got into this work, and I left out a part of my story, which was that I had some vocal disorders. I had some voice disorders. I hemorrhaged my vocal cords. It resulted in a pseudocyst on my right vocal cord, and my right vocal cord is partially paralyzed, or it's paretic. It means it doesn't move as well as my left vocal cord, and just your good old classic terrible acid reflux. Combine all of that together, and I thought I was done for. I thought I was never going to sing again. I thought I just went through this whole program of speech pathology, spending thousands of dollars, and now I'm not going to be able to do what I love. I'm not going to be able to use my voice, and I was just heartbroken. But it really ended up being the greatest blessing in my life, because now I know what it feels like to have some medical issues. I know what it feels like for those who are going through things like you said you're going through. I know what that's like, and I just want you to know there's hope. I now am fully in control of my voice. I have my own show on YouTube doing voice impressions. I'm able to help tons of singers and speakers rehabilitate their voice. So just so you know, even though there's a little bit of this either a hernia issue or a diaphragm issue, I believe you will sing again. I believe you will speak again, and just hang in there, okay? But do seek some medical attention if you can to find out what's actually going on there. But we're rooting for you. Sally, doing the vocal course. The course is great. The course is absolutely great. And I would recommend with the vocal course, watch the video component of it too. Sometimes you get a little more out of just seeing Justin do it first. But then once you know you've mastered that, then of course you can just use the audio. But the vocal course is phenomenal, really. That's for everyone. That's not just a sales pitch, but the vocal course, man, it's such a great way to go get to where you want to go. It's good. Did you hear of this? And if yes, do you know people continue to sing? Yeah. Oh, you speak French. Wow. Well, merci for typing in English. Yeah, I have heard of this. And yes, people with hiatal hernias can sing again. Definitely can. But sometimes you need to get that checked out. So if you haven't, I would recommend that you do. While I'm not a hiatal hernia specialist, I've also had I forget the exact diagnosis of my hernia, but I had one myself. They said that was leading to a lot of the reflux issues I was having, and I'm singing with no problem. So there is hope, but get it checked out. Sometimes there are some surgical things that need to be done if it's really that serious. But hey, It's worth it if it gets you singing again. Okay? You've been inspired by Beyonce's Coachella singing and dancing, but don't want to make it that. Oh, this is back to the choir, right? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if everyone's going to be Beyonce in your choir, but if you get a choir full of Beyoncés, let me know when you are performing. I want to go. I want to go. That would be incredible. Maybe there's an in-between. Maybe there's an in-between, or at least in the style of Beyonce. As far as your voice type, that's cool. Justin, I believe recently, did a great video on voice types, vocal fox they're called. So you can check out your voice classification that way. Lee, welcome Lee. This is your first question here. Been studying classical voice for several years. How can one approach the guttural sounds that rock and soul singers do without damaging the voice? Mahalo. Yeah, great question. My answer for everything is going to be understand the anatomy, right? Understand what makes these sounds. And that could be, we could spend years on that, just so you know. But basically, there are a bunch of different things inside the voice that can rattle and make sounds. One of them, the vocal cords themselves, can actually make some distorted sounds. So for example, if we do something called vocal fry, this is a distorted sound. And you could sing with that, or you could even morph your resonance while doing that to make it sound like a scream or a guttural sound. Yo, yo. That's just vocal fry. That's all it is. Yeah, rock music. Whoa, yeah. So that's one way to do it. Another way is you can use something called the false vocal cords. That's one. And the good news about the false vocal cords is even though for some people they can be a little sensitive, they're a little sensitive for me, to be honest with you, but they don't damage the true vocal cords because they aren't the true vocal cords, right? So not that we're damaging the false vocal cords either, but that sound is not even made by the true vocal cords. So it's pretty safe if you can do it right. Another type of sound is the epiglottis, right? The tongue and the epiglottis can interact. Ma, ma, yeah. That's kind of that happens a lot in more soulful rock music. That sort of thing, right? So I'm pulling my tongue back to interact with my epiglottis. There's tons of different ways. My biggest recommendation of how to do it safely is to ease into it. Don't just try to do it all right away, and use less air. Everyone's using tons of air, and you don't need it. All of those sounds I just did were no louder than this. Yo is not loud. Let the microphone do the work for you. Hopefully that's helpful. We're going to be doing a video soon, by the way, Lee, on some of these guttural distorted sounds. Everyone's asking for it, so we're definitely going to do it. Another question. When I execute a long exhale, there's this bump of air coming out at a certain point. How can I smooth it out? I know what you mean. I know what you mean. You're definitely going to want to do some exhalation exercises. I would recommend doing the hiss. So, and see how long you can hold it out for. Try to make it longer and longer and longer. And try to do it where you let out the least amount of air possible. As I do it here over the computer, you might not even hear it. It'll be so quiet. I don't know if you guys heard it. It's very, very quiet. That's going to help you learn how to regulate the exhale, how to control those exhalation muscles, right? And it's going to let you let out the least amount of air possible, which is going to give you better control, better fine control over those muscles that control the exhale. So that's a good way to start. Lengthening the exhale and seeing if you can let out the least amount of air possible to gain finer control over that. That's what's happening. It's just a spot in your exhalation cycle where you don't have full control over the breath there. So it's going whoop, the muscles are slipping. But if we gain that fine control over it, then we'll be able to not have those bumps anymore. When you make certain intervals, your jaw has a tendency to start moving around. How does this work? It's interesting. You're saying certain intervals, just certain note spacings cause you to do that. It might be because the note intervals are big. I'm not sure. But maybe those intervals are big, so that's making your brain think that you need to do more work to make that interval happen. So you start to change things to make that interval happen. I think another question that might be even more important is, how do I fix it? So you're going to need to do some jaw stabilization exercises. I don't think there's any better than the NG sound, as in the word sing. You can do it with the tip of your tongue, touching the back of your bottom front teeth. Jaw relaxed. You can even take 2 hands and keep that jaw relaxed and say NG. Then slide around. Let's see if we're doing. Let's see. Try to let it not move. That'd be a good exercise to help you with those jaw issues. You're welcome for the encouragement. My French is very limited. I did go to France once though, but I'll try. Anita, are spicy foods bad for vocal cords? Because I eat a lot of spicy foods. Do I have to quit? Everybody's body is different, and we have some similarities, but we have a lot of differences. You need to learn what foods work best for you. If you find that after you eat certain foods that you're getting vocally irritated, one of the things you can do, take a little journal. Make a little food journal. It could even just be a note in your phone. It doesn't have to be an actual journal. But write down what you eat, and then write down any symptoms you have for the next day or so. And if you start to notice a trend, oh, every time I eat spicy foods, this happens. Then the answer is, it's up to you. You can try removing them for some time and then slowly increasing them back in. Sometimes people acclimate to that and they're able to get a better tolerance for it. Or you might have to cut it out altogether. I think that if you track those things, you'll be able to answer for yourself. Some people can eat spicy food and have no problem. I'm not one of those people. I can't have too many spicy foods. I can get by with Chipotle a little bit here and there, but other than that, for me, I have to scale it out. Also, are you eating right before singing? Don't down some spicy food and then immediately try to sing. Let that food relax a little bit. Be careful not to eat 2 to 3 hours before bed, especially if reflux is a thing for you. As we lay down, the reflux can more easily go back up if we're eating right before bed. So I would say track it. Find out what any symptoms you have might be and see how that relates to the food you're eating. You might be fine though. It's not that all spicy food is bad for all people. Not the case at all. What are the false vocal cords and how do we use them? The false vocal cords, so you have your true vocal cords, and then right on top of them, kind of like that, are the false vocal cords. They're these bigger, fleshier tissues that are there. And they're used in grunting. So if you imagine trying to grunt or clear your throat a little bit, but blowing air through, so instead of just a quick one, imagine going, those are your false vocal cords. If ever you can just try a little grunt, or maybe even more exasperated, that sound, those are your false vocal cords, and they can be used in so many incredible ways. I think a lot of times people don't like some of the more harsh vocals, but I'm a huge fan. And as a listener of metal music that I am, the false vocal cords are used all the time. And there's just some incredible vocalists out there who do it. You also hear it in what they call throat singing, right? Where it has that kind of sound. That is all from the false vocal cords as well. So really, really cool stuff can be done with them. Try them out. Oh, you do, when you said you do that specific exercise, you mean the NG? If you mean the NG, good. Keep doing it. Lee, looking forward to the video and hope to schedule a Skype lesson soon. Yeah, please do. Please do. It'd be great to work over Skype. Yeah. And singing riffs. Why were you in France? For fun? I was in France. It's been many years now. I was in France in 2010, I believe, for a school trip. I was still in college at the time, and it was a school trip. We all went. It was great. It was really great. I was there for about a week. But I don't speak too much French, as we've seen. Could be the French food, Vincent. Love this. Again, guys, just the best questions. Really great stuff today. I love these chats. I love these chats, and it really is thanks to you guys for just being so willing to talk and willing to ask questions and just being super kind. It's great. Anita, is whispering bad for vocals? Have you ever heard of anybody have to go to the hospital because they whispered? Whispering gets this bad reputation. I've never met anybody who's hurt themselves whispering, not one time. Whispering gets a bad reputation because if we're trying to whisper loudly, yes, that's not good for it. So we don't want this because we're forcing air through there. The cords aren't resisting the air very well. Just going to slap them around a little bit in there. It's very abrasive. But most people, when they're whispering, are trying to be quiet, right? So if you're actually whispering like this, if you're actually whispering like that, no, it won't hurt you. That being said, any vocal coordination that you do for too long is not a good idea. You want vocal variety, wake up that voice, allow it to do lots of different things. We just want to keep it fresh, keep it moving around, keep it healthy, keep it versatile, just like your body, right? You don't want to be sitting for 4 days on end. You want to walk around a little bit. You want to stretch. You want to move. You want to lay down. You want to sit up. Same thing with the voice. So whispering is not bad unless you're trying to whisper loudly. Don't do that. But otherwise, whispering is perfectly safe. You'll have to fly on over to France. That'd be great. I'd love to go back. I'd love to go back. The jaw stabilization exercise is new to you. Go and try it out. Oh, the hiss. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, the jaw one. Try the NG, holding the jaw. You'll notice it wants to move a bit. You know what else you can do? You can do some vowel exercises. Most vowels, you don't actually need to move your jaw, but we all think we do. So let's say we're doing E, I, E, A, Ah. I just did all of them without moving the jaw. Didn't even move the front of the tongue. Just the back of the tongue raising up a little bit, right? That's how you make vowels, as you move the back of the tongue. But the jaw didn't move. So you could also do some vowel exercises. And trying to get your jaw to stay stable. I'm glad, Anita. I'm glad that's helpful. Really glad. Everyone just has awesome questions. And you know, I feel that a lot of times we think that having the answers is the big thing we're all aiming for, but the questions are the most important part. You know someone has some good intelligence when they're asking good questions, and all of you are just so smart. You're asking good, smart questions, and I just love it. I just love it. It shows that you have an understanding, and you're trying to get a better understanding. You are all well on your way to being vocal masters. Great question. So it's really not normal to move your jaw when you do riffs. Remember before when I was talking about the larynx and the larynx height, and I said if you want to do it, great, but if you need to do it, bad? Same thing applies to the jaw. If you can't do the riff without the jaw, that is less than optimal technique. You want to be able to do the riff yay without the jaw, because you don't want the jaw to be your elevator. You don't want the jaw to be the thing that helps you. The jaw has nothing to do with moving notes. That's the length of the vocal cords, right? So we don't want to be beholden or reliant upon the jaw. That being said, it might look cool, right? Yay. If you want to do it for style, great. But if you have to do it, that's where I would say make sure you don't need to. Which, again, this is vocal technique 101 here. Give yourself the utmost control. Give yourself the utmost control, and then do with that control whatever you wish. If it's moving your jaw, if it's moving your larynx, whatever it is, but show yourself that you have individualized control over all of these body parts. The jaw is not only used for riffs, you see a lot in the pop world, also you see it for vibrato a lot, right? Think of Whitney Houston. Everyone look up Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You music video. One, it's a really terrible video. It's very funny. It's very dated. So watch that video. But two, when she goes to sing, it's and I will always love you. There's all this right? It looks cool. We all love it. We think it's great. But she doesn't need to do that. I don't know if she specifically needed to do it, but we don't need to do that. We can control it independent of that. But then if we want to throw it in there, awesome. That's vocal control. So where is everybody from? We have France. Is anybody here in New York? Any New Yorkers? If so, you have to come on down to New York vocal coaching, New York speech coaching. Ariana Grande does do it as well. It's a very pop thing. A lot of pop singers do it. Wish you were in New York as well, Anita. Vincent, what exactly is vibrato? Where does it come from? Vibrato, here's the definition, and then I'll make it simpler, is the oscillation of the pitch. Oscillation means moving back and forth. Right now my finger is oscillating. So if you take a note and you go me, hear that little warble? Me, hey, little vibration. It's moving the pitch sharp and flat just a little bit so that the note feels like it's moving, but not moving it enough so that it sounds like another note. It's not me, but me. Hear that little tiny warble in there. So where does it come from? The vocal cords. It is a pulling in both directions, lengthening the vocal cords and shortening the vocal cords just a little bit. So our ear still perceives it as the same note, but it's moving just a little bit, so it has that warbly, shaky vibrato kind of sound. Vibrato, think vibrate, same root word there. Is vibrato natural or can it be learned? It can be learned. It can be learned. In fact, it's not natural. Go listen to any 5-year-old sing, and they're not, hey, they're not doing that. It's eh. Everything's very straight toned. Now, a lot of us pick it up naturally. That's true. A lot of us will just learn it naturally, but we learn that a lot of things naturally, right? But it also can be learned. Here's a good exercise for you. Me, 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 me. Now, technically, that's between two notes, right? Me, 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 me. But that's going to get you to start to have that feeling of, oh, what does it feel like to move around? And what I would do is I'd keep moving that up and down and then increasing the speed or decreasing the speed. So you start to get some real control over how much you move that pitch around. So maybe at first it's me, 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 and then maybe it's slower. Me, 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 and then maybe faster. Me, 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 me. Right? Great exercise. Then move it up. Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. That'll help you get that vibrato sound. And then over time, you can walk away from that and just do it naturally. New Zealand, the Netherlands. Oh my gosh. We have France. We have New Zealand. We have the Netherlands. We have somebody who wishes they were in New York. We have New York. Singing unites us all around the world, guys. This is great. Wow. So cool. We have a few minutes left here, so let's get those last questions in. India, but currently in Toronto. All right, you're closest. Toronto's closest. Let's get those last questions in. I want to try to get all the answers I can for you guys. Great question. How long should we practice daily? Learn your limits. Learn your limits, meaning start small, 15 minutes. Up it over time. It's going to depend on what you're practicing as well. You might be really working through a piece, and that's going to need a lot of detailed focus. It might take you an hour, it might take you an hour and a half. But in the beginning, start small and learn what you can handle. And my biggest piece of advice is don't be a hero. Don't be a hero, meaning don't think, oh, I can go for 4 hours. No. Take it easy. Same thing with performance. Until you've learned how to handle that, don't try to be a hero. Take your time, start in small increments. But I would say you definitely want to get up to about a half an hour, 45 minutes per day is something everyone should be able to handle. That really shouldn't be a problem. An hour really shouldn't be a problem either. Voice lessons are typically an hour. You definitely want to at least build the endurance up to there. And I would say you want to be able to practice in a comfortable way for longer than you're going to be performing for. So if you're performing for an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 20, an hour 30 shouldn't feel uncomfortable for you, right? What causes stutters in people? Vincent, that question we're going to have to save for another day because that one is a big question. It's a very passionate topic for me. Can't do it justice in a minute and a half, but if you join me on my next live chat, I'd be happy to answer that in full, okay? That's a promise. Half an hour is the maximum. Yeah, so start there, maybe even a little less, right? But as we talked about earlier, learn what some of those habits you might be doing are that are hindering you from practicing longer. It's a pinky promise, Vincent, as long as you remind me. But I'd love to talk about that. I'd love to talk about it. Yeah, by the way, everyone, remember that in addition to being a singing teacher, I'm also a speech coach and a speech pathologist. So if you do have any speaking specific questions, like stuttering, for example, I'd be more than happy to answer that. Sally says she learned a lot. I'm glad. I hope everyone learned something today. I learned some things. I learned where everyone's from. I learned your interests. And I've learned that there are some really smart musicians out there who are passionate about the voice and they want to learn more, and that's great. You know where to find us all. You know our YouTube channel. You know these live chats. I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys in the future. Okay? One last question here. If you have a dummy or a fake tooth, is it influencing the way you pronounce consonants? Not necessarily. Some of my teeth may or may not be fake. So I think I'm doing just fine. Ask me that again next time. We'll talk all about prosthetic teeth. We'll talk all about speech sounds in general. Okay? I'm glad this was helpful for you all. It was very exciting for me. Looking forward to next time. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.